Probably most of us can look back at Christmases in the past and have some really wonderful memories. And sometimes when you get to be a certain age, you look back and talk about the weather that you had on Christmas. And you often hear people my age or older talking about, well, when I was young, Christmas was filled with lots and lots and more snow and cold and ice and all of that. Young people, has anybody in your life ever told you this? Did you ever have to hear about how much more snow and cold? Older people, how many of you actually said this? It happens. Well, I found myself doing that recently and talking about, it looks like it's going to be a rather warm Christmas, but I remember these big snows and ice and all of that and freezing cold, all of that. And this one young man who is too smart for his own good said, it sounds like that was the end of the last ice age. We hope he'll make it through. But we look back. We look back with affection, not nostalgia, but affection to these wonderful Christmases. And it is important that we do that because Christmas brings out the best in people in many ways. It helps us share with one another and become more of a family. It helps us share of ourselves with gifts. And it helps us bring people together that we maybe don't see all the time. It brings something together and we celebrate something important. And that important celebration is of Jesus, that we gather together to say something so magnificent happened on Christmas that changed the world forever, that God came to us as a human and lived among us in order to teach us and to heal us and to love us. And that's well worth celebrating. It's extraordinary that we see what God has done for us out of absolute, pure love for us. Over and over again, we come to Christmas each year, celebrating. And sometimes the Christmases are a little less exciting than others. Sometimes we don't get what we wanted. Sometimes the turkey burns. Whatever happens. But still, the feast of Christmas is worth celebrating and worth remembering with affection and with goodness, and thinking of what came out of that first Christmas affects us daily. Jesus came to the world and continues to do so in the Eucharist we share, in the word we hear of the Scripture, in the community gathered as his family. Jesus is still coming into the world in new and wonderful ways. And how fortunate we are to have that as part of our lives, that God is with us day in and day out, and came in a very special way at the feast of Christmas in Bethlehem. So today, as we gather together as God's people, God's family, God's beloved children, let us remember that he sent his beloved Son to us out of love for us, to bring us to understand a little bit more carefully what he's doing for us, so that we could know in our minds and our hearts and our souls that extraordinary things are happening in this world because of God's care for us. And we can look back, yes. And as you get older, you look back more and more and more because you have more Christmases to think about. And that's wonderful. And you think back, you look back at these Christmases, and whether they were perfect all the way or whether you had huge snows or whatever, most of us remember them with great affection. Not because memory falsifies, but because love understands. And love came into the world with Jesus.